You may not hear his voice in Speed Racer or Astro Boy, but he was present at the beginning of the modern anime boom in America. You know who you will find in Astro Boy or Speed Racer? Kenji Utsumi, who not only voiced Dracula in the original Japanese cast of Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned, but also played the same role in Osamu Tezuka's Don Dracula. Born in Fukuoka Prefecture in what is now Kitakyushu City in 1937, Kenji Utsumi is considered legendary among Japanese seiyuu, or voice actors. The youngest of 5 siblings, Utsumi lost his parents at an early age, and he and his brothers and sisters were split up and sent to different homes. Through junior high and high school, Utsumi lived and worked at a catered lunch shop, and in high school he would join the drama club. In his 3rd year of high school, he was brought on as a part of the theater company of NHK Kokura Broadcasting, where he performed in radio dramas in addition to making on-air announcements. When Kyushu Asahi Broadcasting opened in Fukuoka, he transferred and signed an exclusive contract with KBC Radio. Despite this success in broadcasting, Utsumi felt limited by the opportunities available in what was still a rural area of Japan. In 1958, he moved to Tokyo, where, with the help of a friend at an advertising agency, he landed a successful audition for a live-action children's show. His first appearance as a voice in an animated cartoon would be in 1963's Astro Boy as an unnamed drugstore owner. But his first major voice role came the same year, as he played One-Eyed Jack in Wolf Boy Ken. With what fellow seiyuu Michio Hazuma describes as a quivering voice that shakes the uvula, Utsumi launched into a decades-long career that included iconic roles such as Inspector Rokugo in Mach Go Go Go, better known to English-speaking audiences as Speed Racer's Inspector Detector, Don Quixote in Don de la Mancha, Senbei Norimaki in multiple series and spin-offs of Dr. Slump, Odin in Saint Seiya, and Major Armstrong, the strong-arm alchemist in Full Metal Alchemist. All of this while still continuing to act in live-action television and pursue a career on stage with the Mirai Theater. I have no idea when or even if this man ever slept. In addition to his prolific work in animation, Utsumi provided the voices in Japanese language dubs of English movies and television. For Japanese audiences, Kenji Utsumi's voice is also the voice of Steve McQueen, John Saxon, Carl Weathers, Burt Reynolds, Joe Don Baker, and Billy D. Williams, to name just a few. And Star Trek fans may be interested to know that if you watch the Japanese language edition of the Star Trek original series, you'll hear Kenji Utsumi as the voice of Montgomery Scott, while Disney fans would hear Utsumi in the Japanese dub of DuckTales, playing none other than Scrooge McDuck. Not just a performer, Utsumi was also an advocate for his fellow performers. He was part of a landmark lawsuit in Japan that won the payment of residuals for seiyuu whenever their work would be released on home video, and also co-founded and helped to operate Ken Production, a seiyuu agency that is today presided over by his son, Kentaro Utsumi. He met his wife, fellow seiyuu Michiko Nomura, while working on 1965's Space Ace, and the two would work together frequently, particularly in the Doraemon film franchise, which, interestingly enough, has never really found a toehold in the United States. Other seiyuu have nothing but nice things to say about Utsumi, describing him as bright, energetic, passionate, and cool. In his long career, he never forgot a friendship, helping old co-workers from his Kyushu radio days find housing and work when they came to Tokyo. In 2009, he was honored with the third ever Seiyuu Award for Distinguished Service. He passed away in 2013 from peritoneal cancer. At the time, he was still actively working, and since his passing, the roles he was regularly portraying have gone to no fewer than 17 seiyuu.
しかし、チョコラの身に万一のことがあった。お嬢様なら大丈夫。ご主人様とは出来が違うでよ。うっそ。これはご無礼をば。
Osamu Tezuka was born in 1928 in Toyonaka, Osaka. The oldest of 3 children, he grew up in a prosperous family. His mother would take him to the Takarazuka Grand Theater to watch the all-female Takarazuka Revue perform their romantic musicals that were largely intended for a female audience. Tezuka himself would say later that his eye for style and fashion in his work was inspired by the troupe's costuming, and that the makeup that emphasized their eyes would be part of the inspiration behind the large eyes Tezuka would employ as part of his art style. But it was Walt Disney that made the young Tezuka want to become an animator. He devoured all of the Disney animation he could find as a young man, reportedly watching 1942's Bambi over 80 times. He began drawing comics in elementary school and would continue writing and drawing even when, in 1944, he was drafted out of high school to work in a factory to support the Japanese war effort during World War II. Following the war, Tezuka became fascinated by the power of comics to teach people to love and care for their world. His first ever professional manga, Diary of Ma-chan, would be serialized starting in 1946. His next major work, Shin Takarajima, or New Treasure Island, was loosely based on Robert Louis Stevenson's classic novel and is credited with launching not only Tezuka's success, but also the golden age of manga in Japan. Tezuka moved to Tokyo and, even while publishing a string of popular comic features, studied medicine, graduating from the Osaka School of Medicine in 1951. That was the same year that he published the first ever appearance of Astro Boy, which became a major sensation among young readers. All of his successes led to his first opportunity to work in animation on an adaptation of his own Sayuki, a retelling of Journey to the West from Toei Animation. The result was 1960's Alakazam the Great, credited with changing Japanese animation by introducing ideas like simple line work and limited animation. Tezuka is credited as the director, but reportedly his participation in the project was a disaster. The crew complained that Tezuka was difficult to motivate into doing his work. They eventually pushed him into storyboarding the film to get him out of the animation studio. But even then, he missed deadlines and failed to turn in his work until Toei's production team issued weeks of threats, at which point he turned in a 500-page storyboard that the animators found completely useless, saying that it read more like a manga than an actual storyboard. For his part, Tezuka said that the experience with Toei left him miserable, especially because he was told from the start that he would not have any control over his own story or the ending that it would have when it appeared as a movie. Although Tezuka would wind up poaching several of their animators by offering them double their current pay when he decided to open his own studio in 1961. The first film out of Tezuka's Mushi Productions was Tales from a Certain Street Corner, which he called an anti-Disney experimental film. Behind-the-scenes production would go just about as well as Sayuki, although this time around there were no additional editors to kick Tezuka's ass and make him do the work. The film would only release for a single special screening, but the same screening also featured the first 2 episodes of Mushi's first ever television production, Astro Boy. The show would debut on television on New Year's Day in 1963 and was the first Japanese series to establish a model for animation production for TV, as well as the first Japanese series to sell into American distribution, and also the first Japanese children's series to launch a lucrative licensing arm for merchandising. Essentially, this series created everything the modern anime industry is built upon, and it almost died after just 4 episodes. Mushi had produced 3 episodes of the series, and only had the resources to work on 1 more episode when Tezuka successfully sold the series to NBC Enterprises, the production arm of America's NBC network. NBC ordered 52 episodes, and their investment helped keep the lights on in the studio while they completed their work. Even so, Tezuka was annoyed by demands from NBC as part of their contract, including that all signs in the cartoon had to be in English, no story arc could last more than a single episode, and that the show was not permitted to have any religious references, adult themes, or nudity. But the deal established Tezuka as a major player in animation, also leading to NBC co-producing Jungle Emperor in 1965. Mushi Productions' work may have been popular, and it may have created the foundation for the entire industry in Japan, but Tezuka's financial model was ultimately unsustainable. As the 60s came to a close, Tezuka turned to the adult film market to try to keep his company afloat, producing 1001 Nights and Cleopatra, but neither movie made enough money to keep the studio running. Tezuka stepped down as acting director in 1968, and Mushi would close its doors in 1973. Tezuka would open a second production company, Tezuka Productions, but this company would be less concerned with producing commercial product and more provide a playground for Tezuka to continue to experiment in animation. I mean, they still liked money, but Tezuka hoped this studio would be better able to weather the occasional dry spell. For the most part, Tezuka returned to manga, creating his own magazine, Calm, to aim his work at a more mature audience. As part of this shift toward more mature narratives, he would create the series Blackjack, which has been referred to in the West as The X-Files if the episodes were mostly prolonged scenes of Dana Scully performing autopsies. That manga series was extremely serious in tone, and Tezuka would find himself wanting to loosen up and have a bit more fun. And the result was Don Dracula. The gag series sees a Japanese company moving Castle Dracula to Tokyo without realizing that it is in fact inhabited by Dracula himself, as well as by his young daughter, Chocula. Wait, I need to check something here. Okay, Tezuka first published Don Dracula in 1979. General Mills first released Count Chocula in 1971. Did Tezuka canonize Count Chocula as Dracula's daughter? Anyway, Dracula and his daughter adjust to life in Japan, with Chocola attending night school and Dracula prowling the city of Tokyo trying to find victims, but always managing to screw it up somehow. In 1982, Tezuka decided that the series was successful enough to warrant taking a crack at television, and Tezuka Productions began work on Don Dracula, the anime.
ただいま。お父さん、今日ね、学校に変な先生が来たわよ。ヘルシング教授って。ああ、そう。何がどう変なんだい？そのヘルシン。ヘルシング教授だと。どうなんだら。どうしたのよ、お父さん。
Kenji Utsumi's Dracula this time around is a far cry from Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned. This is Dracula, the sitcom dad, full of self-seriousness but goofy and inept. He is hopelessly devoted to his daughter, Chocola, and determined to save her and himself from Rip Van Helsing, the latest of the vampire hunter line. Thankfully, even this goofball Dracula can manage it when this scion of the Van Helsing clan is a short stack with a Poirot mustache and a severe case of hemorrhoids that flares up every time he thinks he's about to actually catch a vampire. In the meantime, however, Dracula is obsessed with finding himself victims who are befitting his stature, which he thinks should be easy, because Japan is full of demure, beautiful virgins, but in actuality, he can't shake the burly Blonda Gray, whom he first bit by accident when he arrived in Japan. Look, I'm not going to pretend like the humor in this series is all okay. There's a very, very significant dose of sitcom-style sexism and fat phobia at play here. But without proper cultural context, I honestly can't tell if Dracula's interest in and image of the women of Japan qualifies as fetishization of Asian women, or if it's supposed to be a satire of the Western fetishization of Asian women. Somebody somewhere is fetishizing, though. Tezuka Productions secured a contract to produce 8 episodes of their series, but the show was pulled off the air after only 4 when their sponsor filed for bankruptcy. The show found some modest success, selling all 8 episodes to Italian television, as well as to Spanish and Portuguese language markets, but not enough to greenlight a new series. In Japan, however, only the first 4 episodes were ever seen until the show finally received a DVD release. Speaking of DVD releases, the show has seen home video release in Japan, Italy, and Brazil, but apparently not in America, at least not that my research can find. So if you're looking for a legitimate licensed copy to view, be prepared to pay a premium for an out-of-print import edition. I mean, piracy is a thing, but how would you sleep at night? As for Osamu Tezuka, now known by the titles Father of Manga and even God of Manga, he published more than 700 volumes of comics in his lifetime, totaling over 150,000 pages of work. He actually met Walt Disney in person at the 1964 World's Fair and recorded in his personal diary in 1986 that the Disney Corporation had reached out to him wanting to hire him for a science fiction project. Tezuka passed in 1989 from stomach cancer. His last recorded words were directed at a nurse who attempted to take away his drawing materials, and they were, "I'm begging you, let me work." So I can't help but feel that he would be happy to know that he is at the core of the Tezuka 2020 project, in which machine learning analyzed Tezuka's art style and then used that knowledge to produce a brand new character design, which was then combined with a script written by an AI programmed on a diet of Tezuka's writing to produce the manga Paidon. The manga released in the magazine Morning in February of 2020, and a sequel series has already been announced. So tell me, what do you think of Don Dracula? What do you think of the work of Osamu Tezuka? And what do you think of the ways that I have managed to mangle Japanese names and words in this particular video? Drop down into the comments and let me know. And while you're down there, there's also a like and a subscribe button. There's a button with a bell on it that you can click in order to get notifications every time there's a new video on this channel. There's also a share button. If you have any friends who might be interested in this subject matter, simply click that button, share it with a friend, because sharing is caring. Until next time, I am Glenn Williams, the film optimist, reminding you to watch like it means something.